Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to be taking another look at sprites for Season 15, and this time I'm going to be trying yet another level 2 engine that I actually haven't tried myself yet, despite being one of the more popular engines. That's going to be the Nimble engine, specifically Nimble Beaver. This card is much like Deep Sea Diva and Dark Beckoning Beast, where more or less the long and short of it is, when you summon this, you typically, barring any disruption, will get a second level 2 monster into play, which naturally sprites really like doing in order to go into Gigantic Spright. So, if Nimble Beaver is the most popular of the engines, why is it the one that I've come to last? Well, really, there's a couple of reasons for that. I wanted to start actually by showing the Diva engine, just because it had a different route, the route into Baron, so I wouldn't be able to show that off. Even at that time, I was thinking the Nimble engine was probably going to be slightly better than Diva, but what I didn't really anticipate as much was the Dark Beckoning Beast. So that was in the last engine that I used. And for those who are unfamiliar or not seen that video, Dark Beckoning Beast, when this is normal summoned, you add the opening of the Spirit Gates from your deck to your hand. That would be this card right here. That will in turn add another Dark Beckoning Beast. And then from there, you could normal summon it again. And the reason that I typically like this engine a little bit more than the Nimble engine is that a couple of reasons. One, the Dark Beckoning Beast engine is normal summons, so it plays better into Maxx. Two, the opening of the Spirit Gates is actually a full setup on turn 1 by itself. So that's another additional card you can have to get your play started. And on top of that, being Dark Attribute is a very minor benefit for being able to more easily go into the Djinn Buster. Oh, and there's also the fact that the opening of the Spirit Gates can also act as an additional body. By discarding a card, you can bring back one of the Beckoning Beast. So that's typically why I prefer it over the Nimble engine. The reason to play Nimble Beaver really over that would be mainly the fact that it's water attribute, which is very relevant for Swap Frog, being able to pitch a beaver and then special summon the frog. Nimble Beaver is also pretty useful in that you can actually bring one of it back bring a copy of it back from the graveyard. So it doesn't matter if you have a Nimble Beaver in deck or graveyard, you still get 2 level 2 monsters, where the Beckoning Beast, if you've already got the opening of the gates in your hand, well, you've already searched, or you've already gotten that, so then you don't get a search there. To be fair, you can then just activate the gates and then get the second Beckoning Beast anyway, but that's generally why I kind of prefer the Beckoning Beast, but the Nimble engine is definitely not too bad either. I will say this much: when Spright Sprint comes out, which is a League 2 Sprite monster we don't have yet, that can send a level 2 or lower monster from the deck to the graveyard, then the Nimble engine definitely gets a lot better, but not necessarily even because of Nimble Beaver, but more Nimble Angler. You can send this from the deck to the graveyard, and then you'll get 2 level 2 bodies that way. So in the future, I definitely expect Nimble engine to be the best one, but right now I think it's a lot more debatable, and I personally think the Beckoning Beast engine is a little better after having tested with the Nimbles here. But the Nimble engine is not the only one I am testing. As you can see, I've kind of taken the build a little bit back to where it was during our first build with the Divas. Not in that we have Divas, but we've got Gamma and Feathered Esther, but more notably Gamma back in the deck here. I'm actually a huge fan of PSY-Framegear Gamma in this format. I've said this before in other videos, but being able to destroy any of Sprite's level 2 monsters that have effects when you summon them, to negate and destroy it, is so good, because not only do they get that advantage off of, well, their level 2 monster, but then without a level 2 body on board, they're not able to then special summon any Sprite monsters from their hand. Because often enough, as I'm sure are all well aware by this point, you can use Ash Blossom or Imperm on the Nimble Beaver, but it's still very easy for your opponent to then just special summon Spright Blue from hand. But Gamma, again, being able to both negate and destroy, plays around that a little bit better. It's also really, really nice, if it doesn't happen often at all, but if you can actually summon this on your turn, let's say your opponent Maxx during the draw phase, you can Gamma to summon itself in Driver, and then you can link those two off for Spright Elf. Then use Spright Elf to bring back Gamma, go into Gigantic. That's like a play in itself right there. That very, very rarely happens, but it is something that's relevant. Another more notable thing, that is also relevant is the fact that we do have to play the PSY-Frame Driver. This is, of course, the reason that you would not want to be up on this engine, or not want to use it, rather, is because, well, you do have to include a brick in your deck, which is a little unfortunate, but at the same time, it's I think it's generally worth it, honestly. in this format, I feel like you're going to be playing some amount of going first bricks anyway, which if you're going first, Gamma is a little bit of a brick too. Not as much of one as obviously Driver, but you know, if you're playing Dark Ruler no more, if you're playing evenly matched, if you're playing some big board breaker spells like Raigeki or something, like you're going to have some amount of cards in a deck like Pure Spright right now that's going to have some dead draws on turn 1. I just like the Gamma a little bit more because I think it's a little bit more flexible. So that's my reason for testing it out here. And then, like I said, we're testing out Feather Duster as well. But this was honestly mostly a placeholder slot. Could have easily replaced this for like Ghost Ogre or some other tech as well. Extra deck is still actually the same as the one we used for MCS Week 4. Yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm not really feeling the need for Downerd, I gotta be honest. There's really, like, there's been one time, of course it was during the tournament, which felt bad, but there's literally only been one time in the entirety of playing all my Pure Spright variants where I've, like, wanted the extra material from the Downerd Magician, like, where it was really crucial. As opposed to that, there have been countless games, and I mean like dozens of games, that I've won with the Diagusto Phoenix and Spright Pixies OTK, so I just tend to value that a lot higher. I was actually looking at Master Duel meta, and I was really floored to see Diagusto Phoenix in like 3% of Spright decks. I knew that most people weren't running Phoenix, but 3% is extremely low. I think this card is being at least slightly, if not very, slept on in Pure Spright in particular. In addition to that, we're still not on Dark the Dark Charmer, we're still on the Underworld Goddess. I love the Underworld Goddess. It's again, a similar scenario. Dark the Dark Charmer, yeah, it came up like a literal handful of times in like the weeks I've been playing Pure Spright, but the Underworld Goddess in like just about a week now I've been testing her in my build has already come up far more than Dark ever did. So I'm very satisfied with where this extra deck is right now. It might look a little weird, but I think it's I don't know if it's optimal, but like I said, I'm really, really liking it. So, all right, that's, I think, everything I want to say about the build. Now let's go ahead and break it down card by card before we look at some gameplay. We're on 1 PSY-Frame Driver, 3 Swap Frog, 1 Ronintoadin, 3 Maxx, 2 PSY-Framegear Gamma, 3 Nimble Beaver, 3 Spright Blue, 3 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Pixies, 2 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 3 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Smashers, and then 3 Infinite Permanents. Now for the extra deck, we're on 1 Diagusto Phoenix, 1 number 65 Djinn Buster, 1 Sky Cavalry Centurea, 1 Cat Shark, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Salamangreat Almiraj, 1 IP Masquerena, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Let's get to round out our list. Let's take a look at some gameplay. So for our first game of this video, we're going to be up against Exo Sisters. Exo Sisters is it's one of those decks that, like, despite not being at, like, you know, the tier level of sprites, I definitely still get a little bit anxious every time I find myself going up against them, just because, like, they have so many quick effects, and you know, their ability to shut out like graveyard interaction in general, plus the ability to play Dimensional Shifter, is actually pretty huge against sprites. It might not seem like it on paper, but sprites are a relatively graveyard oriented, especially pure, well, and runic as well. Pretty much all the variants like really involve using the graveyard, so Exo Sister could be a tougher matchup than you might think sometimes, especially going second, but interesting also that our opponent threw out the Dimension Shifter when they did. I guess it didn't super matter when they played it, but I'm definitely going to imperm the Mekk-Knight because I don't want them to get any of their back row support. It's really all annoying. They have one that summons them, an Exo Sister from deck. They have another one that banishes cards. I know they have one that adds monsters. Yeah, like I said, I'm really not trying to have my opponent do any of that. So I did thankfully open a lot of gas in this hand. I'm going to start with red and then carrot and then blue for jet. I've got a Pixies here as well, get a starter, so I've definitely got enough bodies on board, I'm feeling, to make some sort of OTK here. In fact, this is actually a setup where you could go for the Diagusto Phoenix OTK, which is, I think, what I'm going to go for here. Basically, in order to OTK with Diagusto Phoenix, you just need to start with at least 2 level 2 monsters, and then if your opponent has 1 attack mode monster in play that's got at least 1800 attack points, that is going to give your Diagusto Phoenix enough power with the Spright Pixies. But I actually realized something a little bit too late into doing this play, and that's that my opponent threw out Dimension Shifter, you know, during their turn, which lasts into my turn as well. Spright Pixies you do actually have to send to the graveyard, which means I will not be able to activate it under Dimension Shifter. So, you know, if Dimension Shifter were not live right now, this would be an easy Diagusto Phoenix OTK, but, you know, because I'm not able to do it, I'm just going to have to battle over the Mekk-Knight with the Gigantic Spright, and then smack my opponent with the rest of my monsters here. I wonder if I could have figured out a way to go for lethal had I factored that in. My opponent's still at 1700. Like, maybe if I'd gone for Cat Shark instead? That would have represented... It would have represented more damage, but only, like, 700 more damage, right? I think my opponent would still be at least 1,000, but in any case, you know, I'm still gonna just get the OTK on the next turn, because I figure with the Spright Red, that would probably be enough disruption, given how few cards my opponent had in hand to make sure they didn't have any plays. I could have also sacked off the Diagusto Phoenix to make sure I was both negating and destroying whatever monster effect they tried to activate. So, yeah, we had to, like, wait an extra turn, but that is more or less, if you were curious, that is the setup for the Diagusto Phoenix OTK. 2 level 2 monsters, and then, again, your opponent has 1 monster in attack mode with at least 1,800 attack points. Your opponent can also actually have another monster in play, as long as Pixies can battle over it, and you can still OTK through that. So, yeah, it's one of the main reasons I like Diagusto Phoenix. I like having multiple ways to OTK. You can do it on clear board with Cat Shark, or, again, as we saw, you can do it with the Diagusto Phoenix if your opponent has monsters. Well, as long as they don't Dimension Shifter you. But, alright, that's going to do it for that game. Let's jump straight into this next one here. Alright, for this one, I'm going to be up against Sword Soul Tenni. Looks like they're attacking a Lightning Storm, but nothing too out of the ordinary beyond that. Going to be taking the second turn once again, letting our opponent go first here. We did open the Psy-Framegear Gamma and the Feather Duster, though, so this is a very, very good-looking going second hand here. So I'll let the Ashina resolve. Obviously, don't really want to send that to the graveyard. Well, negate and destroy the effect, because, yeah, they're just going to go for Monk anyway, and then it's usually not too hard for them to get another non-effect monster on the board. So I'm mainly waiting for, like, something like Moye here to negate. So interesting, our opponent does actually need that Ashina in hand, as I had to go for the second Monk of the Tenni here. I guess this was them just like trying to bait out a response for me here, but yeah, I'm gonna let the Ecclesia resolve. Like I said, I want to hit like specifically whatever level 4 monster, like whatever Tenni they're gonna try to use the effect of. But this was actually a really good move on my opponent's part to use Shaman, because I'm thinking to myself like, uh-oh, if they have like a Moye or something in hand, then they're gonna actually be able to use that. So we'll negate destroy the Taya, but they do actually end up having a Moye, so they're able to summon that, get the effect for Ashina. Now, fortunately for me, because they've used, the Shaman's effect, they're not going to be able to use any extra deck monsters effects except for Tenni cards, which is probably why my opponent went for the Draco Berserker here. I don't know, though. Maybe, I'm trying to figure out if Draco Berserker was actually the one to go for, because there is an argument to going for Chi Shao anyway. Like, you won't get the search, but you will get the negate here. But my opponent elected for the Banish instead. The Banish actually is probably better if you think I'm on Spright, which is a fairly general assumption. Generally, rather, a good assumption to make. So, definitely going to start with the Feather Duster to get rid of this back row, just in case it's, well, you know, anything scary like Blackout, which it was in fact Blackout. And because I'm just the luckiest player in the world, I top deck this Imperm, so I don't even really have to think about this Draco Berserker, because, I mean, yeah, the Draco Berserker would have been enough to stop me otherwise. I would have normal Swap Frog activated the effect, they would have banished it, wouldn't have been able to summon Ronin or the Jet, so I just would have been done there. But, yeah, like I said, we're just casually the luckiest player in the world. A slight misplay here of monster placement. Usually you want to have the red in the middle monster zone, so that way it's being protected by the Spright Elf target protection. It doesn't matter like 98% of the time, but it also doesn't negatively affect your plays otherwise, so there's no reason not to do it. As you can see, I'm going for the Pixies here. I am once again going to try to go for a Diagusto Phoenix line here. And I think with the Spright Smashers, I am actually able to OTK here. Actually, I don't even know if I need the Smashers, but either way, I'm able to, like, because I have it. So, yeah, I'm going to use the Diagusto Phoenix to attack this Berserker, battle over it, and then it's going to keep that attack boost for the second attack. So, stays at 4,500 attack points for the second smack, and yeah, I didn't even need the Smashers here, but if my opponent had, like, an additional monster in play, or if my opponent... if I just had another card I needed to clear off the board for whatever reason, we did have the means to do that, not only with the Smashers in hand, but also the extra Ronin body on board. So, yeah, there's that game right there. That's another example of OTKing with Diagusto. And as you can see, like, I'm not even really going out of my way to... It's just the optimal way to win the game on the spot in both of these cases. Like, well, not on the spot in the last case because Dimensional Shifter, but, you know, so... but this is why I really like having Diagusto Phoenix over Downward Magician. Again, Downward Magician has come up exactly one time in all these weeks of playtesting Spright, but Diagusto Phoenix, like, in this session alone, we already had multiple games where we were able to win because of it. So, once again, and this is me just, like, saying, Diagusto Phoenix, maybe not being majorly slept on, but at least minorly slept on, in my opinion. So, here's that duel. Let's go and take a look at the next one here. Alright, so this time around, it's going to be a pure Sprite Mirror match. My opponent's on some interesting tech. They have Gamma Burst, which I'm not, like, opposed to, but I really don't think is necessary at all. They're also on PSY-Frame Gammas as well. They're also playing E-Tellies, which I did consider actually putting in this build because of the PSY-Framegear Gamma. Basically, the idea being that, you know, you can use the E-Telly to special Gamma from your deck as a level 2 body. It puts a level 2 on the board. It also doesn't take up your normal summon, which can matter sometimes. But given that it's the only target, I actually sorted by level 2 Psychic monsters because I was like, if there's another really solid target for E-Telly, then yeah, I'll definitely run E-Telly. But there really is not. Like, again, one even halfway decent level 2 monster, a Psychic monster, I would gladly run E-Telly. I'd gladly test E-Telly at the very least, but... Like, literally, Krebons is, like, still the best one. I say still because it was, like, the best level 2 E-Telly target way back in the day, like, in 2008 Teledad days. And that, you know, PSY-Framegear Gamma aside, it does still seem to be the best level 2 Psychic target from what I remember. So, unless there's, like, a spicy tech I'm just not thinking of, but I looked pretty hard. In any case, I want to use the Gamma here to both negate and destroy blue. This is another reason why I really like Gamma. Like, I know I said, like, oh, it's useful against stuff like Nimble Beaver, Diva, so on and so forth, but even if your opponent normal summons, like, a level 2 monster, in this exact scenario, my opponent normal summoned a level 2 monster and then special the blue, I'm able to use Gamma to negate and destroy blue. That's going to stop my opponent's plays altogether, because they only have one level 2 monster, they don't have another one to summon, and they didn't get the search as well, so... Yeah, the Gamma, like I said, I've been liking it quite a bit here. So I'm going to summon the Swap Frog and go for the Ronin Mill. And my opponent then uses the Maxx in response to that. Okay, this is actually, this game, this little maneuver here is like one of the main reasons I wanted to keep this game in. Because it definitely matters a lot more now than it did in the past. Like... In the past, you know, my opponent doing something like chaining the Maxx to the Swap Frog is like, okay, that's a weird time, but I guess it doesn't really matter. This kind of thing matters a lot more now because of Triple Tactics talent. I see so many people waiting till they're in the main phase, and then I'll, like, normal Swap Frog, or Dark Beckoning Beast, or activate Opening the Spirit Gates. I'll do some kind of effect that doesn't special summon, and they'll chain Maxx to the effect. And I'm just like... Why? Like, why? This is a bit of a PSA, like, don't do that. Like, you need to either be maxing during the draw phase to play around the Triple Tactics talent, which I'm using on my opponent right now, or if you're gonna wait until the main phase, wait until you're guaranteed going to get a draw. Because, like, I'll show you exactly what I'm going to do to my opponent here, right? They maxed during a time where they didn't get a draw from it. During my main phase, too. This not only allows me to Triple Tactics talent and put back their last card, which is actually relevant that I managed to put back this Gamma here. I'm also just going to move to battle phase, smack our monsters into each other, and then just pass. Like, because my opponent is not going to get any draws, and, like, my opponent only has one back row card. And given that they're on pure Spright, their one card they're going to top deck is not going to do them anything unless it's pretty much exactly Spright Starter or Swap Frog. I guess if they're on Dark Beckoning Beast, like that would do it. You know, one of the level 2 starters or a Spright Starter. But unless they top deck that, my opponent's kind of SOL. And even if they do, I've got the Imperm here as well. So, you know, I really think that in this meta, you really need to be super mindful of when you're playing Maxx. In the past, again, in past formats, you could get away with playing it like my opponent did here, but that's definitely not the case anymore. The other thing to be mindful of, too, is if your opponent's got a Spright Elf on board and they activate a Maxx, and you have a Callby in hand, like, your opponent is going to be able to chain the Spright Elf's effect to bring back the Maxx to play around the Callby. So, yeah, again, you know, Maxx, like, people say it's a skillless card, and in some ways it is, but the way in which you use it in this meta, there is definitely a skill about it that you have to be mindful of. So, there is that duel. I think we have one more to take a look at. Let's just jump straight into it here. Alright, our last duel for this video is going to be against Runic Spright. So, we get to face off against a nice little suite of meta decks here. We like it when we have variety. Going first again this time. And that's a fairly standard, like, good opening hand. Yeah, we have the Dark Beckoning Beast and the Jet and a couple of Imperms. I can't really complain too much, even if we do have the Gamma here. So this was actually a good... Oh, no, sorry, this wasn't a good Maxx. This happened to be a good Maxx for my opponent, because had they fired it off during the draw phase, I could have Gamma'd. But, again, they chained it to an effect that doesn't special summon, and even though that did play around my Gamma in this instance, it still, in general, is going to let me play my turn. I mean, obviously, you know, you still want to Maxx. Like, that's still the right call, but just the timing there was so weird. Like, I'm trying to think of what would have been a good time, like a better time. I guess if they had played it, yeah, I mean, during the draw phase, obviously, would have been a better time in general. Again, I had the Gamma here, but more people are on talents in general than Gamma. Yeah, against Dark Beckoning Beast, it's weird. That's actually another reason why I like Dark Beckoning Beast. It's kind of weird when you would actually want to chain Maxx without giving your opponent too much advantage. But this is another reason why I like the Dark Beckoning Beast engine, is because if your opponent chains Maxx to your Beckoning Beast, which people do all the time because they just don't read. I mean, like, seriously, just read over this card's text. The word Special Summon is not on it at all. Yeah, if they chain Maxx, then you get to set up a Djinn Buster. You give them one draw, but they already discarded Maxx, so it's net 0 card advantage, and you get to end on, at the very least, a monster effect negate, as opposed to, like, the nothing that, you know, Maxx would usually force you to end on. So, that's another reason why I really like Dark Beckoning Beast in this build, or in pure sprites in general. I was going to start with a Wind-Up Kitten. I'm actually going to use Imperm and not the Djinn Buster effect, because I want to see if I can potentially use a Djinn Buster on a monster effect that's not on the field. Basically, the Imperm here is like the more, I guess, restrictive monster negation, so I'd rather use that first. So this is then going to go to activate the Hugin effect. Now I'll use the Djinn Buster, even though they are activating the on-field effect, because I don't want to give away that my last back row is another Imperm, because I don't think my opponent is going to be very likely to play around a second Imperm, nor should they, really. I don't think many people should expect to see 2 Imperm in that few, you know, in an opening hand like this, but I want to keep that air of mystery. Was my goal, and then my opponent just flipped up Runic Destruction, so it's like, okay, well, there goes all nuance to this chain sequence. I'll just chain the Imperm, because there's no reason not to, because it'll lock my opponent out of the spell trap zone, and they might accidentally throw a card down here, so if my opponent's not mindful, they can play a spell or trap card here or here, and potentially lose out on a lot of advantage, but no, they're just going to go for their gigantic sprites, getting the Apuria. This might look really bad for me, like, it's like, oh, you have so few cards, both in hand and board, and your opponent's, like, going off, but, like, it's actually kind of fine here, because, yeah, they can get back Wind-Up Kitten and put back the Djinn Buster, that's fine. Because I have the opening of the Spirit Gates, I can just, you know, discard a card, bring back a Beckoning Beast, and then just special the Spright Jet, so, yeah, and then my opponent doesn't have a battle phase either, so they weren't going to win this turn. Actually, drawing the Swap Frog here was huge. This is actually another reason why I really like the opening of the Spirit Gates in particular, is that You can discard a Swap Frog, bring back a Beckoning Beast, get out a Spright Elf, and then use Spright Elf to bring back the Swap Frog and start getting that engine. Like, you can play both engines kind of in the same turn if you manage to discard the Swap Frog off of the opening. So, just another reason why I really like it. So here, right, I actually want to talk about this play because, you know, I had in my hand of Swap Frog Gamma and Spright Jet. I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, do I try to normal the Swap Frog, or do I try to see if I get the opening? And at first I was like, well, no, if I use the opening's effect, they'll just negate it with the Spright Carrot, and then I'll kind of be SOL. And then I realized, like, wait, no, I won't be because of PSY-Framegear Gamma. So we're actually going to see an instance here of Gamma being useful on my turn as well as the opponent's turn. And, you know, naturally, when you play Gamma on your turn, it's so much better. It's so much better. So now I'll negate and destroy the Spright Carrot. They don't have an IP either anymore because they gave that up. I don't know why they gave up IP and not Spright Elf. I feel like, well, to be fair, if they'd given up Spright Elf and they would only have IP on board, it wouldn't be useful anyway. So I guess my opponent really was just kind of like SOL here. And it was nice that I drew Swap Frog, but it really did not have to be exactly Swap Frog. Like, yeah, the Swap Frog is going to get me an extra body in the form of the Ronin here, but I'm pretty sure I didn't need this to win. My opponent's just going to concede at that point. So this was another great game to show for a good case for Gamma. Not only being useful, of course, during our opponent's turn, but during our turn here as well. So there are those games. Hope you enjoyed those. Let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.